Welcome to the Coming Home Well podcast, the show that educates, supports, and advocates for the veteran community. Your host, Dr. Tyler Piron, U.S. Army retired, will bring you exciting conversations with amazing guests about resources, research, and military history, all geared to helping our warriors to come home well. Here's your host, Dr. Tyler Piron.
Welcome to Coming Home Well. I'm your host, Dr. Tyler Piron, and today we are going to be talking about something that's really important. And it's actually a bunch of things, but it's really important because we all know people that are having challenges with finding a place to live, what to do when they get back from service, things aren't going so great, and what the heck do you do? There's a lot of organizations, a lot of help, but there's a really cool one that we found that we wanted to talk about. It's called Backpacks for Life. And you're like, oh, that's a pretty cool name. I thought it was a pretty cool name. And they do some really neat stuff, and I'm not going to steal their thunder. So we have Brett D'Alessandro. He's the founder of Backpacks for Life. The website's super easy. We'll put it up on the Facebook page and all the other social medias. But it's backpacksforlife.org. And he founded this about 3-4 years ago because he saw some of the challenges that people were having when he got back from service. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Brett.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about veteran issues and initiatives that we're tackling.
So Backpacks for Life, how did it start?
Yeah, so I volunteered for this deployment. I was in class in college. My gunnery sergeant called me and told me about a deployment. I said, absolutely, I would like to participate in this deployment. And I left school. I was going to University of Rhode Island, left school. I was a gunner overseas in the Marines. I went in 2013 and came back home. It was a rough deployment, lost a few Marines when we were overseas, and also when we came back home to suicide. And I was also struggling myself, and being 21, I just didn't really know how to seek help. I also kind of felt like a weak-minded Marine asking for help. And I originally thought it was a sign of weakness, which in reality, it's a sign of strength to seek help and recognize that you have an issue. And so I went through various programs. I went to the VA, just really got, I was just really trying to seek what was out there, but really kind of utilizing luck though, which is ironic and shouldn't be something that a veteran uses to seek help. So I was going to a doctor's appointment during the winter up in Rhode Island, saw a homeless vet. He had a sign, homeless vet, please help me out. I went back to my motel. I was with one of my buddies that also deployed with me, got a backpack, filled it up with warmer layers, went back out there, gave it to the gentleman. 3 days later, saw him again. He was with a little boy. I pulled over to the side of the road, and before I could get a word out, the little boy said, "Thank you so much for the backpack. I no longer have to go to school carrying my books in my hands." And the dad said, "Thank you so much for the warmer layers. They've been keeping us warm throughout the winter." And at that point, I'm like, wow, it's not just me. I'm not just this lone survivor dealing with this. There's a lot of other veterans dealing with issues. And I also saw that it wasn't just the veteran, but the family as well. And from there, I kind of got this flame reignited back inside of me. And I called my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. I was like, hey, I got this great idea. And this is, again, where I just wanted to serve. I wanted to help people. That's why I joined the Marines. And this kind of gave me that feeling again to be able to help others, especially my brothers and sisters. So I was like, I survived out of a backpack in Afghanistan for 7 months. Let's build mobile homes, quote unquote. Let's get these backpacks, fill them with supplies, toiletries, and most importantly, resources, and give them out to vets. And from there, we just started to GoFundMe, and then we started the nonprofit, and we're raising money. We're giving out backpacks with these supplies, toiletries, and resources, and really built upon that theme.
That's pretty awesome. It's amazing what little spark, some random encounter, some luck, as you said, had to change the trajectory of your own recovery or coming home well, as opposed to where it might have been otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really my own therapy. People say the real, like, why do you do this? You do something to put food on the table. You do something because you have to. I do this because it's my therapy, and I truly love helping others and seeing somebody who's just really down on the dumps and needs a shoulder to lean on. It's not sympathy, it's empathy. I really feel for these vets because I've been there, and being able to have the ability to help somebody else is super powerful and absolutely rewarding. So I truly love it.
We always talk about the two biggest challenges vets have when they come back from service, especially overseas or combat or very intense situations, especially for a long time. It's finding your purpose and finding your tribe, finding the people that are with you, the tribe of folks that we have in the military. Like anytime you go to a new unit, doesn't matter where you're coming from, you get integrated in the unit, and that's your tribe. You can take soldiers from wherever, put them together, and boom, they're all making friends. And in finding your purpose, you have that in the military too. You know what your job is. You know what you're supposed to be doing. Then you get out, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to be doing. Where am I supposed to be? What's the right thing to do? Sounds like you found both with helping vets that are homeless.
Yeah, it's a lot of change in the narrative, and there's a lot of misconceptions out there. Like I mentioned before, of seeking help, I equated to, would you call somebody weak-minded and hopeless if they're looking to get into college? No, you're like, oh, they're trying to prosper their career. Same thing for an individual. Looking and seeking for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And this word help isn't like, oh, I'm down in the dumps and I need help. Maybe it's just to better yourself. So I have a lot of analogies I'm going to throw out there, but it just equated to going to college. And also you want to create that line of defense. You want to go out there just like a business individual or an entrepreneur. You want to network out there and see what's out there. So when something happens, you have the tools to lessen the blow or overcome that situation, because it's called life. We're all going to deal with something. So veterans are just a little more amplified because of the potential traumatic experience that they went through.
You bring up a really good point. I mean, the most successful people I know are the ones who network all the time. They know a lot of people. If they don't know a guy, they know a guy. And then we turn around and go, oh, you need help. Oh, somebody might think, oh, that's weakness. But in every other endeavor, like you mentioned with going to college or being a businessman, that's how things get done. And then we go, oh, it's like you want therapy or medicine or a place to live or a job. And all of a sudden that's charity. No, that's just how you get things done. That's a pretty good analogy. There's a lot of issues with that. I'm sure you've dealt with over time where people are too proud or they don't want to ask for help because a lot of reasons. But it's always the ones who need help. And you got to like give it to them even when they say they don't really want it sometimes.
Yeah, it could be confusing because some people like, oh, well, when somebody asks for help, if a veteran, for example, comes to me and asks for help, like you have to be extremely open and coddle them and make sure that they always know that they can come to you no matter what. Well, yes and no. There might be, I know some Marines or some vets in general, just got to yell at them like, hey, come on, let's go. And like that pumps them up. So you got to read the room. It depends on who they are. But regardless of scenario, you always have to let them know that you are willing to hear what they have to say. You're willing to be malleable. And regardless of whatever happens, if it's tough love or not, you have love for them. And that's what they'll look at. They're not going to look at, maybe you're a little hard on them, but it's because of love. And you just got to make sure that they understand that. So there's a couple of different approaches in how you help somebody, but really the first approach is just planting the seed and letting them aware of what's out there. I've had vets where they're like, oh, well, this vet wants to, or I've had individuals come to me where they know of a vet living in a tent. They're like, oh, come on, we got to get him housed, almost in a forceful way. I'm like, hey, first of all, it's a free country. Secondly, you got to let them know what's out there. And if they want to live out in a tent in the woods, well, that's what they want to do. And that's where they are. We can't force them. That's the blessing of America right there. And when they're ready, at least they'll know what's out there and they'll know that we're here for them.
So let's talk about Backpacks for Life. We've heard how you started it. What is it that you actually do?
So we give out backpacks.
It seems pretty simple.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It seems simple, but there's a lot to it. We give out backpacks. When we originally started, it was like this neon green backpack, just absolutely horrendous. Straps broke, total disaster. But as a starting point. And from there, we built upon it where we actually now have a backpack called the Bowery Pack. It is patented. It is basically all features that we saw was lacking in a backpack to help somebody survive and get off the streets. So we created it, going to an array of textile expos, talking to individuals and networking, meeting people who are engineers that help prototype. I mean, dozens of prototypes of this backpack. It has a locking cable, so vets could actually lock the bag to their bed at a shelter to prevent it from getting stolen. Imagine your house getting stolen when you went home. It's a lot of stuff is in that backpack. It's their mobile home. So we want to prevent it from getting stolen. Another issue is hypothermia. We put a little isolation mat, so like a yoga mat that pops out of the backpack. They can lay on the ground. There's reflective material built in the backpack. It's a ballistic nylon, so it's super durable materials. A ripstop is the inside of it, which helps it prevent any further tearing. So it's a sea bag style backpack. So extra room to pack stuff inside the backpack. And I do sea bag because zippers break and then it becomes immobile. So detachable toiletry kit, and I could just go on and on, but those are some of the key features. And yeah, it's a really cool backpack to date. We've given out about 10,000 backpacks. I've worked with over 500 veterans on an individual basis. If it's a vet that needs teeth, we help the vet get veneers. Had an issue, she got her teeth punched out from somebody. We've helped vets get housing, refurnished veterans places. So the first phase is getting the backpack out there. Second phase is actually coaching and mentorship, where we'll actually help the veteran through various processes and intake forms and procedures. So we're there for them. It's not, here's a bunch of URLs, good luck. It's like, hey, you're going to see me on an email to somebody so we can make sure we stay on top of these things. Give them advice, like have a notebook. When you talk to an organization or a VSO, Veteran Service Organization, write down who you talk to, when you talk to them, what's pending. Is there anything you have to do? Is there any application fees? We'll pay for those. You need a bus ticket to go to a job interview? Sure, we'll pay for that. You need a suit? Absolutely. You need a resume? Fantastic. So we help them to make sure that the ball continues to roll and they're not sitting stagnant because of a $25 bus ticket that they couldn't get to the job.
Sounds like a soup to nuts, help people get out of that funk or that situation that they're in. It's not just a backpack, but that's a great way to, especially with the homeless population. I think it's pretty amazing. You went and said, hey, look, I looked at all these backpacks. None of them have all the things we really want them to be able to have in the terms of designing a backpack. So you made a backpack that's really kind of focused on, hey, you're homeless. Here's a really great backpack if you're homeless, because you can get backpacks for anything, for students, for bags, for laptops. But I've never seen one that was like custom designed for somebody who's living on the street.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's just a lot of work and a lot of community driven effort to create this backpack. It's super cool. I mean, even down to it's the max size for carry-on approved for an airplane. Talked to United, we looked up the sizes, and yeah, you can it's carry-on approved. So really cool features. We have a 1-for-1 model just to help with our nonprofit. I encourage anybody who runs a nonprofit to diversify your income, especially with COVID. People were just looking at grants dried up and they had to furlough employees and they were out. Us being a smaller grassroots nonprofit, we didn't have that burden of things that we had to pay for. So we're able to have longevity in what we do, but also because we diversify in how we get funding in, even down to like having people donate with their birthday fundraisers on Facebook. So this backpack, going back to it, we have a 1-for-1 model. You buy one, the cost of you purchasing that backpack gives you the backpack and gives one to a vet. So we can continue this program.
So these are actually really good backpacks if you guys are looking for a carry-on size backpack, because I go camping all the time, and be able to put stuff in like a sea bag, be able to squish it down because zippers break and all those other things. It's really cool. Go check it out at backpacksforlife.org. And click on the Bowery Pack. Now, I did have to ask, how did you guys come up with that name? I was curious. I was like, I don't see a direct thing, so I had to ask.
So in the Marines, we always have, it is cause and effect. There's always a reason why we do what we do. And for the Bowery Pack, the name derives from the Bowery in New York City, where that was the first time somebody put the words homeless and veteran together after World War II, where there's just an influx of homeless veterans. And I just thought it was appropriate to like, this is where ground zero is. This is where homeless and veteran kind of connected together. And let's call it the Bowery. I don't know. It's also a cool name, though.
It is a cool name. I was sort of going along those lines. The Marines are famous for calling things the ink stick for a pen and go fasters for your tennis shoes. I've always been amazed at the number of names and the diversity of common items that get new nomenclatures in the Marines. So I was wondering if it was one of those type things.
Yeah, even I love the scuttle bucket water fountain. Oh man, that gets me every time. The scuttle bucket. Like,
well, that's where you get scuttlebutt from. Hanging around the water cooler. Yeah. So you guys have the Backpacks for Life, and obviously backpacks are a big part of your mission, but you are in a lot more places than the New York, New Jersey area. It was like 26 states.
Yeah. So I primarily focus tri-state area. That's where I can actually help a veteran link up to a resource. Now, we've had vets call us from Hawaii, Iowa, California, Florida, wherever it is. I can let them know in like a top level roadmap. I can let them know about national organizations or how to work with the VA, but I can't really pinpoint on like a specific organization, but I could give them a roadmap. Hey, have you tried this and that? And looking really at a VFW, American Legion, Knights of Columbus, maybe a Rotary Club. These are groups you can talk to, ask churches about maybe vouchers for food and food pantries and things like that. So I can let them know on a roadmap how to talk to somebody, because sometimes a vet will call somebody, they'll be angered and this and that. I'm like, hey, like, again, these people are volunteers. Like, I'm not saying you have to really suck up to them, but just try not to piss them off. I know you're in a really crappy situation, and rightfully so, you should be upset, but try not to piss these people. Like, so I'll kind of coach them on how to approach organizations and what to do when you hit X, Y, and Z. So yeah, but primarily focus tri-state area.
So that's pretty neat, because every area is different and there's lots of different resources. In fact, that's one of the reasons I'm talking with you today, is because I was like, this is an awesome organization. I can see it expanding over time, but being able to provide that personalized service, which is a lot more than just a backpack with some socks and the other necessities that I'm sure get packed in them. But I meant to ask about that. You don't give just the backpack. What goes in the bag?
So we have supplies, toiletries. The supplies range the arrays like emergency blanket, ponchos, stress ball, pen, pad of paper, other things. I'm just trying to, I can't shoot
the warming layers, stuff like that.
Hat, socks, gloves, things like that. Universal sizes, so no like jackets and such. And then the toiletries, the regular toiletries that you see on the counter. And then for our females, we do feminine products as well that are just also included into the backpacks. And then anything that's spillable, like soaps and such, we'll put those in Ziploc bags. And yeah, so those are some of the features, the things that we put inside the backpacks. We try to make things, I want to put stuff in the backpack that's reusable. We try to stay away from like little one-shot soaps and such, Scuds brushes and things. So those are some of the items that we put inside the backpack. And then resources, again, tri-state area, I'll put a flyer about Roger, a search platform we created for the state of New Jersey that has all things veteran resources.
So you and I were talking a while back about some of the thought that goes into these things. And you guys go through and want to make sure that it lasts, that it's good stuff. Let's talk about the Ziploc bags, because I think this is a fascinating insight into the thought and care that goes into these projects.
Yeah, so I wanted these vets to be able to reuse these things. I wanted to make sure, because what they already have, they're going to put inside the backpack. So we don't want to overload it. We want to make sure these things are used multiple times. And just a regular Ziploc bag, there just are, especially if you go even below just a regular Ziploc bag where you're trying to get those cheap, like 99-cent store Ziploc bags, they're horrible. They barely zip. So I spent a long time searching for a really kick-ass Ziploc bag and found these bags that are meant to hold sharp metal objects. I mean, these things are so thick, vets can reuse them. They normally would put their most prized possessions, especially any paperwork that they don't want to get wet, and they'll put that in there. DD-214, IDs, social security cards, and things like that will be put inside these Ziploc bags. So yeah, everything down to the Ziploc bag has been thought of. It's honestly just feedback. Hey, what I gave you that backpack last year. How'd it go? Oh, this and that. So I get feedback by the homeless vets that we work with. We see them throughout the years. We worked with the vets who've given out, like I said, 10,000 backpacks. So just really shutting up, opening up our ears and listening on what's the issues and how can we solve them.
That's amazing. I always think it's amazing when we have a lot of focus on a problem and then you're like, oh, it's something so benign, like a Ziploc bag. Okay, a Ziploc bag is a Ziploc bag, but it's not. And
No.
just like when we're deployed, what's crappy equipment, the good equipment. And you always try to avoid everybody wants the Chili Mac MREs and avoid the ham slice. Unless you really like the ham slice, then I've got questions, but that's okay. So let's talk about Roger real quick, because that's a pretty cool resource. I know you guys have spent a lot of time and effort developing it. What is Roger?
So I saw one of the biggest issues our veterans were facing and why we had high suicide rates and homelessness, especially suicide. It's not something that, oh, we can work through it. We have time. It could be seconds until something traumatic happened. So how do we prevent that? Time is of the essence. We wanted to mitigate the time wasted between the veteran and the resource, especially with intake forms and you might even find that resource, but going down the rabbit hole of you don't even qualify for that resource. So we didn't want to, we wanted to prevent this time right here wasted and mitigate it. And so we created this search platform, basically just a really cool algorithm on how do grants operate, how does the municipality, how does the state, even up to the federal level, and how in regards to restrictions of grants, demographics on who you can serve, where you can serve them. And we put it all into Roger, even an income calculator built into Roger where you type in your income, your zip code. Are you looking for resources because you're an entrepreneur and you want to find help starting your business? Are you literally looking for housing? You're homeless. So there's an array of resources on there. You go on there, type what you're looking for in real time, and automatically uploads the resources that you are searching for. We have about 400 resources on Roger. We have about 700 people viewing Roger a month. So it is really, really beneficial for the veteran community. It's really interesting. We started Roger 2 years ago, been working on it for like 5. We saw some stats that homelessness and suicide rates are decreasing in the US in general, but in New Jersey, it's drastically decreased farther than other states have. So it's really, I'm not saying this is something that Backbooks Life did. I think this is the hundreds of resources that we've worked with, that we're currently work with in New Jersey, that focus on the veteran community, really working as a team. It's not about us. I can really care less about our nonprofit. It's about the vets we serve. Those are the people that we care most about.
You brought up a lot of really good points, and something I want to touch on a little bit more. The frustration people have with getting access to services. I see it all the time. Vets that are in a crisis or in a really bad spot want help right away, which they deserve and they should be able to get, but things take time. Sometimes it's a lot of time, and sometimes that is just so out of whack with their need. Like, I'm almost homeless. I've got 2 weeks to figure something out, or a week, or whatever. Because a lot of times people put things off until it's right in their face. And then they go reach out for help and they're like, yeah, we'd love to help you, but you don't qualify for this, that, and the other. So Roger goes through and says, hey, here's all the criteria for homelessness, for instance, and sort of serves it up on a platter based on what they're eligible for.
Yes. And please, any vets, please start to see what is out there. Don't wait till last minute. 9 out of 10 times, unfortunately, the vets that come to us, they're in such a deep hole. It's hard to dig them out of. I mean, we've done some impressive things, but please, it's so much easier to help yourself out personally if you just see what's out there. It's like putting suntan lotion on before you get burnt. Don't put it on after you get burnt. It's useless. So go out there. You're a quarterback. Make a line to the fence. Don't just be like, oh, I know one group that can help me. Well, what if that person leaves or moves, or what if they shut down the nonprofit? You want to have a line of defense. You're the quarterback. At least have a couple people that can help you within a similar situation. So housing, you might want to see what groups deal with vouchers or HUD-VASH. See all those groups, see all these individuals that can help you with different things. So it's not just one size fits all. Maybe you want to look at some mindfulness. You want to look at some housing. You want to look at some government programs as well, food stamps. So you want to have all these steps, all these contacts and people ready to go, because it does take time. It's just something that is out of our control sometimes, where you want housing. Well, I wish you signed up 4 months ago, and now it's going to take you 4 months.
Absolutely. And I see that a lot. And it's one of the reasons that I care so much about this is knowing what resources are available when you think there might be a problem coming down the pike. And if we're honest with ourselves, we know that there's a problem coming down in some way. It may not be when exactly, but I haven't been paying my rent for 6 months. I know there's a problem coming down the road because they're going to evict me or whatever the case is. But if you're like, hey, I'm going to go see what's out there. One of the things I did like about Roger, and the website is roger.vet, and I know you guys have done a ton of effort, is you have these categories of things which make a lot of sense for veterans, which is a little bit different than it would be for the normal homeless population, like records, like how to get your records if you need another copy of your DD-214 or things like that, or family services, because the family is so important. And a lot of times we sort of forget that when we're dealing with the veteran population, at risk and homelessness, federal and state benefits, health and lifestyle, and education and employment. And of course, we also have female, minority, and LGBTQ plus situations, which are often different because of various things. So you have all those categories, which I think is really smart as starting to getting the resources. Now, I understand that you're primarily focused right now in New Jersey. Is there any plans to expand that?
Yeah, we originally tried to do all 50 states. It's just every state operates completely differently. So it's hard to have one system that speaks to all. So we just focused on New Jersey right now. I mean, a lot of these organizations are national, so they'll help vets from all over, but some of them are very local. And yeah, we know New Jersey. We're based out of New Jersey. Let's just focus on New Jersey. We are thinking about expanding. It is a lot to really know how that state operates. But yeah, we're working on it. And that's where going back to these resources, people are like, well, I don't even know what I would possibly need help for. So just kind of look around, like food. Look up some resources for food and what happens about housing. Like you mentioned about your DD-214, go to archives.gov and get an additional one, because what if you lose that other one? So just preventive measures, they're not that hard. Just making sure what's out there, and when something happens, you know how to react. Just like in the military, once we want to make sure we have a plan for any scenario that could happen.
It is often a challenge. Organizations change, contact information changes, resources change, all these things change, and knowing where to turn is often a huge challenge. So I think it's a great effort, especially when you're able to customize it for your locality. Maybe one day you'll have a sponsor or a partner organization in each of the states that can make a custom one for each state or locality, Puerto Rico, for instance, wherever. So what is it that has been the biggest challenge that you've had with X for Life?
I feel like the challenges are just normal in what everybody faces. It's just, I'm 31, I'm going through this. Some things are new to me. I really tried to live off of a smart person learns from their mistakes, a wise person learns from others. We're slow because we want to ask 12 different questions to 5 different people and then come to what is the best direction in how we can proceed with this. So I've gotten definitely burned a couple of times looking for somebody to help with a project or helping with Roger, the search platform, where somebody just wasn't a good fit. So it was trial and error. You can look at it. Was it a negative path? Was it a mistake? You're going to make mistakes. Nothing's perfect, but it really depends on if you're going to learn from that mistake. And we try hard to learn from our mistakes. We're not perfect. We definitely got burnt a couple of times with some deals, but we do things the best we can and we learn from our mistakes. And right now things have been relatively good because we have a great team and we have learned a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, every organization, everybody has challenges, and that's why I was asking, because I find that I learn more about the challenges and how people overcome them than I do about just hearing all the greatness of like what it's always so awesome. And you're like, yeah, but I bet you had some challenges out there. And anybody that tells you, no, everything was perfect the whole way, I'm like, I don't think so. But that's some people, that's more marketing, I guess. I'm not good at marketing. I'm more about the real deal. And you guys are the real deal, which I really appreciate. So
Yeah.
I've asked you a bunch of things. What should I have asked you about but didn't?
I think that sometimes people get into the nonprofit world and they try to do everything. The question would be, what do you focus on? We're really focusing on the private sector to tap into for help and resources and funding. I've recently now worked with another organization to help with policy. I've been doing this for a while now, so I'm trying to learn other things, but hone in on one thing. Are you going to work on grants? Are you going to look at the government? I know before I said diversify, but try something first. When you excel in it, try another thing and then another thing. So really don't just spread yourself thin because you're really not doing anything except just staying afloat, but really focus on one thing, perfect it, get to the next thing, never stay comfortable, never just be like, oh, well, this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm just going to go grants, try all these other things. But we're recently working on legislation. We passed it through the Military and Veteran Senate Committee. It's now at the Senate, and this is just for New Jersey. This isn't federal, just state. And it's called OTH. It's S2314. That's what the bill is. And we saw these vets who are committing suicide in New Jersey. Besides the lack of connecting the vet to the resource, we also saw these are vets who don't qualify for these resources. There might be other than honorable discharge vets. And these are vets that one mistake, it might not even be equated to the civilian world. You might not even go to jail for it. So do these vets, should they be stripped of all their benefits? Maybe the GI Bill, but medical, no, I don't think they should be stripped for the medical. So this bill, basically, any vets who are other than honorable, we're going to get them into mental health services or in a rehab for free. It's like 800 veterans in New Jersey who qualify for this. Until the bill gets passed, we partnered with 3 hospitals where any vets in the state of New Jersey, and this goes through the New Jersey Reentry Corporation, you can connect with them and they will get you to a rehab in 24 hours in New Jersey if you're an other than honorable veteran in New Jersey.
That's quite amazing. That gets to the heart of the problem is finding the solution to the real problem, mental health or drug abuse. If you can help that, so many other things fall into place. If you're dealing with psychosis or major depression or PTSD that's very severe, if you can't deal with that first, no matter what you do, it's going to be very challenging to maintain a residence or a job or any of those purpose things. So that's a lot of effort. It's probably born from your lots of time with homeless veterans. You're like, what can we do to help solve this instead of, at the time, prevent it? And you talked a little bit about that before.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a vet who did like 3 deployments and his back was killing him and he was just tired of taking painkillers. And so his buddy told him about cannabis. He smoked a joint. He's like, oh, this is great. And he got kicked out of the military. And I'm like, really? Like that you're going to strip him of all of his benefits because he smoked a joint? Like, all right, another vet who got in an argument with his CO and ended up got in a fight with him and he got an OTH other than honorable. I'm like, really? Like stripping him of all of his benefits? Like these are people that you just give them the chance, you get them off of these drugs and alcohol or just get their mental stability in like homeostasis. They're off to the races. They're contributing to taxes. They're contributing to society. And every one of these people, I'm not 9 out of 10, 100%. I can't wait to get better because I want to help others. Like some of these people, they're like, okay, I try to talk about hearts and minds, but I'm like, hey, on a budget perspective, we're going to save a ton of money if we get these people into rehab and get them mental health services. So, and they also deserve it regardless of their discharge status.
No, that's really smart. I always appreciate the insights into how do we prevent these problems as opposed to allowing them to continue. So I did want to just do a quick shout out. The website is backpacksforlife.org, O-R-G. And they have a really cool shop in there. They have a bunch of t-shirts. They have the Bowery Pack backpack. They have an urban pack, which is smaller, and a bunch of cool shirts. thank you so much for coming on the show. You guys are doing such amazing work, and it's a lot bigger than just backpacks, which I think some might just go in and say, oh, it's backpacks for life for homeless veterans or whatever. But it's a lot more soup to nuts. You guys obviously get very involved in the care of veterans that are experiencing challenges, probably not just homelessness, based on some of our conversations. What's probably one of the best or most meaningful or, I don't know, easy to remember stories about somebody you've helped where it's made like a big difference?
So I had a police officer call me about a veteran who was literally covered in his own feces in a vestibule. Went there. The police officer is like a very amazing guy. I'm really appreciative that he reached out for help. And he's like, this guy's been here a lot. Like, basically, good luck. So brought him to a motel. I got him some clothes. I told him that I'm going to have a couple veteran buddies come by through the next couple of days. And it's about reigniting the flame back inside of a veteran. It's not just about getting housing, but really showing them that somebody's there for them and we genuinely care, building up their just esteem and self-esteem. And so next couple of days, vets came, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. From there, he really needed to get into the VA and get psychologically treated. I brought him to the VA. Again, I told him I'm going to be there with you. He was extremely nervous through this process. I'm going to be there every day. Every day I went there after work, hung out with him, ended up having to go to the psychiatric ward. I was able to pull some strings. I got him a cake because his birthday took place when he was up there. Brought him a cake. We did karaoke at the psych ward of the VA with a bunch of people up there. I had a blast, and from there got him into Community Hope, which is a housing facility for vets. I actually got him a Christmas gift. Picked him up, brought him to my parents for Christmas. We were hanging out. The sweatshirt, he needed like an XL, and I got him like a medium. It literally fit like it looked like the Michelin Man. He's like, this is great, this is awesome. I'm like, dude, I'll get you a bigger size. He goes, no, I want this. I'm like, okay. So he literally kept this sweatshirt. 6 months go by. Somebody sends me a picture. He's doing equine therapy with a lot of other vets, and he couldn't even talk properly when I first met him. Now he's going to these networking events. He has a roof over his head. He's smiling. He's loving it, joking around. I have other nonprofits, because every time he was a nonprofit, or he would go there to go through the program, he's like, hey, do you know Brett? Send him a picture. And I would just get all these selfies of him through other people sending them to me. So that was awesome. That was so cool. He really, it took a lot. I mean, that story I just gave you, it's condensed and shortened. That was like 1.5 years. So that was 1.5 years of working with this person, really in the beginning on a daily basis. So it takes a tremendous amount of work, but it can be done. It happened. It's people said good luck. People have been saying good luck with that smirk on their face to me for years. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this is where I rise and shine. I'm like, challenge accepted. Let's do it.
You brought up a really good point at the very beginning of that story. It was someone who cared, and getting that tribe back together of feeling like, oh, someone does care about me. It's not just like their job. I think that's probably where you guys do a wonderful job in connecting.
Another analogy or situation. You ever watch Castaway? He went crazy and talked to a volleyball because he had no human interaction. We're social creatures. You isolate an individual, like, I don't care who you are, you're going to lose your mind. So we got to really softly introduce them back into society, bringing them around other people, most likely like-minded veterans to help them just socialize. And you're off to the races. I mean, I've had so many vets we work with, you can hear their voice change throughout the months that we work with them.
But something that I've observed, and maybe you've observed a lot more than I have, but when people are homeless, you get treated differently. You're looked at or not even looked at, like you're not even there. And I'm sure that's a big part of sort of the social isolation that you're talking about.
I worked with, and this quote always sticks in my mind. This group, the mobile bus, they're basically doing Meals on Wheels for like 25 years. Couple, we're doing it. So inspiring. And we tagged out alongside them, and we're giving out backpacks along them, giving out meals to homeless individuals. And somebody asked him, a volunteer that came with us, like, hey, any of the homeless individuals ever attack you or dangerous? He goes, listen, I haven't talked to my neighbor in like 15 years. The guy's miserable. He's like, that's my neighbor, has a house right there, white picket fence. These individuals their heart is on their sleeve. They're so happy. They're so thankful. They're so interesting to listen to. They're amazing individuals. I've been doing this for 25 years and nothing has ever happened to me. So you got this miserable neighbor who has a house over his head that looks normal, but then you have these individuals who are truly just absolutely amazing individuals, amazing people, and they have nothing over their head. So take it for a grain of salt. I never have had any situations happen. They've been in serious situations, but they've never done something to me. And yeah, they're just people.
Absolutely. We've been talking with Brett D'Alessandro. He's the founder of Backpacks for Life. The website is backpacksforlife.org. They have an awesome shop. If you're interested in looking at the bags, they're on there. They're really cool and you can buy one and then a vet gets one as well. That's pretty awesome, but they're really neat and they do a lot of great stuff, especially in the tri-state. Brett, I've really enjoyed talking with you and thank you for everything you're doing with the veteran community, especially the homeless vets or the folks that are experiencing challenges as they return home from war. It is often a traumatic and a life-changing event, and some people just have a harder time, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't ask for help. We should go out and get it first and get those resources, get them now before you need them. If you do need them, reach out and ask for help. There's a million organizations that would love to help you or help that veteran in your life, and they want to help. They're there to help. They just don't know who that needs the help. So if you know somebody, get in touch, have them reach out. It's a much easier thing to do before there's chaos and crisis. So having these resources in advance is absolutely essential. But if you know about somebody, reach out to them and direct them to one of these great organizations like Backpacks for Life or Coming Home Well, or any of the other hundreds and hundreds of veteran organizations out there that want nothing more than helping somebody who's having a hard time. Brett, thank you so much for coming on and Coming Home Well.
Thank you for having me. And there's 32,000 registered veteran service organizations out there. There's a lot to go around.
Thanks for joining us this week on Coming Home Well with Dr. Tyler Piron. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and a review. Follow us on Instagram at ComingHomeWell_BTS or on Twitter at ComingHomeWell. Thanks again. And until all are home and all are well, this is Coming Home Well.